Welcome back. You're watching To The Point. Yesterday, Rahul Gandhi held his first roadshow, which was also his first major intervention in the Delhi election campaign. Whilst the roadshow witnessed an enthusiastic response, can Mr. Gandhi revive his party's flagging fortunes? Or in the present circumstances, is that just too much to expect? My guests are Congress spokesperson Randeep Singh Surjewala, the political editor of The Hindu, Verghese George, and the executive editor of Headlines Today, Javed Ansari. Javed Ansari, let's start with Rahul Gandhi's roadshow. Newspaper assessments say that the numbers that turned out were around 7,000, and clearly it's cheered up the party. But as an independent journalist, how do you assess the turnout and the response?
Well, a roadshow, in my opinion, is no barometer to check the popularity or the state that the party finds itself in. The Congress has its task cut out, and they've left it too late. In public perception, the fight is between Mr. Kejriwal and Kiran Bedi, BJP and the Aam Aadmi, and the Congress is playing catch up. It's a very, very tough task that they've left for themselves. They knew all along that they have a they have a battle on their hands. This is while those two are fighting to form government, the Congress is fighting to stay relevant.
You know, I want to stick for a moment, Verghese George, to the roadshow before I broaden the discussion. Your paper, The Hindu, says many of the people present were still unsure about supporting Congress and had turned up really only to catch a glimpse of Rahul Gandhi himself. So was yesterday's crowd a display of curiosity rather than some sort of confirmation of wanting to vote for Congress?
I think it's a matter of curiosity for even people who are mentally with the Congress or who have been with the Congress throughout these years. They are actually trying to figure out which way to go, because they are primarily a constituency which is against the BJP, but they are a little unsure at the moment. Voting Congress would be a waste of their vote or will be a tactical wrong to make. So I think the people who are now gathering around Congress would wait for a few more days to decide finally where to vote. And my guess at the moment is that Congress chances are not really bright in comparison with the Aam Aadmi Party for that particular constituency of Delhi voters.
Randeep Singh Surjewala, answer that point made there by Verghese George, that people are still not sure whether a vote for Congress might not end up a wasted vote. And very few people like to waste their vote. How do you overcome that level of hesitation?
Mr. Thapar, let me begin by saying it is curiosity which leads to popularity, and finally converts into vote for a particular candidate, a party. Having said that, the larger issue, as brought out by both my colleague panelists, is this: that the contest is inter, say, the two parties. We must not forget one important thing, Mr. Thapar, and that is, when we were voted out a year ago, we were voted out because we had been in power for 15 years and we did what we did for Delhi, which we think is phenomenal. But there was voters' fatigue, and there was expectation on the other side. People have now seen 49 days of anarchy, as Mr. Kejriwal puts it. People have also seen 7 months of Mr. Modi's government. While both the parties are trying to make it an issue of clash inter, say, two personalities, there are relevant issues in Delhi which people will always want answers to. For example, if I may very briefly, with your permission, say, electricity. BJP said they will reduce electricity rates by 30%, increased it by 15%. Mr. Kejriwal said he will make sure that companies are accountable, ended up giving subsidy to them. Mr. Kejriwal filed an affidavit with promising no security, no house,
and
no
you're
car.
Hoping that all of this will somehow make your promises on electricity more palatable. I take your point, but actually that's the one I want to question with you, Javed Ansari. Yesterday, loudly and repeatedly, Rahul Gandhi promised cheaper water, cheaper electricity, as well as a roof over every head. But Sheila Dixit separately has been saying publicly that in fact you can't make electricity cheaper. And anyway, the price is decided by the regulator, not the government. So is there confusion in Congress's thinking, or is Rahul's pronouncement the final line?
Well, there's certainly more than one voice. There are contradictions, and the fact that, look, Sheila Dixit, she was Chief Minister for 15 years, but she's not campaigning. They haven't even used her in one assembly segment, leave alone 70 assembly segments. So I'm not so sure how suddenly everything appears to have gone wrong with Sheila Dikshit. And if she was all that bad, then why put her and make her as governor, reward her with governorship?
So on that point of electricity, does Congress really mean it when they're saying that they're going to cut the cost? Because Sheila says it's not easy to do, and she's been chief minister. In fact, she said it would be wrong to do. And anyway, she points out the regulator sets the price, not the government. So when Rahul says they'll bring the price down, I know he's saying the same thing as Aam Aadmi and BJP because they're all going to bring the price down. But is it a convincing line?
Look, I don't think they've thought this through. This is competitive populism. It's more competitive politism. He hasn't, the Congress party, I'm afraid, hasn't thought this through.
Verghese George, clearly this is populist, competitive populism, and it is nothing but promise making. But do you believe it's going to work? Because once again, your papers suggest that those that you spoke to yesterday around the roadshow were deeply skeptical. And skeptical in particular because they felt Congress had for 15 years not delivered on similar promises. Why should they trust Congress to do it now?
No, absolutely. I mean, I am personally too skeptical about the whole thing. See, for a revival of the Congress party, it needs a narrative, it needs a face, and it needs a good communication strategy. If you look at Congress, and particularly Rahul Gandhi, his narrative is confused. He himself as a face is very reluctant, and the communication strategy is non-existent. So, in the absence or a misstep in all these three factors, I think is making the Congress's election strategy in Delhi and nationwide very, very skeptical. Even for people who might want to support Congress are finding it very, very difficult to believe in what is being promised. But at the same time, actually what Arvind Kejriwal is demonstrating is what could be possible in Delhi and at a national level. But unfortunately, Congress does not seem to be in a position to cash in on that situation, which is already emerging in the country. And I would say what the Congress is promising is not really convincing for a section of voters that I've been trying to sense a gauge of, sense a mood of.
Randeep Singh Surjewala, I want to take two issues up with you. First, however, I'm going to take up this question about what Congress is promising not being credible. No doubt cheaper electricity, cheaper water are attractive promises. But the BJP is promising the same thing. The Aam Aadmi party is promising the same thing. And we know from Sheila Dikshit's repeated comments on television that it's not right or proper to cut electricity, which contradicts your promise. So when it comes to promises about cheaper electricity and water, why would people opt for you? Why would it tilt the vote in your favor when we know that your past suggests you don't live up to these promises, whereas other people make them more credibly?
Well, Mr. Thapar, let me begin by saying I find it strange when BJP or Aam Aadmi party says that they will make electricity cheaper, they are plausible, and when Congress says it is not. And even Ms.
Because of Sheila Dikshit saying the opposite publicly to most people. Sheila Dikshit is saying the opposite to most people.
I don't know the context in which she said. I appreciate. I don't know the context in which she said, but even during the Congress rule under Ms. Dikshit, which was stellar and her performance was astounding, I don't think so as Mr. Ansari says that we are disowning that rule. She is one of the tallest leaders we had in Delhi and we are proud of the fact. Even then we used to give subsidy up to a certain number of units for sections that cannot afford.
Why isn't she campaigning for you if you think she was stellar? She won you 3 elections. Why are you not using her this time?
Well, Ms. Dikshit has a role, and I think I disagree with Mr. Ansari that she has not participated in the campaign. I already know that over the last 2 days she has been to 4 assembly constituencies. And I'm sure she will decide her role as also expansion thereof in days to come. But having said that, we were on the core issue of electricity. Across it's not a laissez-faire state, and who knows it better than you, Mr. Thapar. States for a certain number of units, for certain sections of populace, always subsidizes the cost of electricity. Congress has done it for 15 years in the past. BJP in last 7 months has increased those rates. We have said that up to, I think, 300 units, we will supply electricity at 1 rupee.
And you believe that this promise is sufficient to win the election for you? That's what I'm asking. You believe that this promise is sufficient, that it will tilt the scales in your favor, even though BJP and Aam Aadmi are promising identical reductions in electricity and water?
There is one marked difference between the promises made by the other two and the Congress. Congress has delivered for 15 years. This was a city in 1998 when you had to take a wet towel and enter the city.
All right.
The city is virtually pollution free.
Okay.
We have metros, we have bridges, we have urban infrastructure. We have
I take your point.
CNG buses. We have the development
let me put the opposite of that to Javed Ansari. The argument you're hearing is that Congress has done an awful lot for Delhi. And many would agree. The problem is, having done an awful lot, they lost. Then they lost even worse in the May elections of 2014. Do you believe in the 9 months since then, somehow Congress's fortunes have changed so much they can bounce back? Or, as Mr. Surjewala suggests, the experience of Aam Aadmi and 9 months of Mr. Modi is so dire that people would prefer Congress. Are either of those two presumptions correct?
Neither. One, it's too early. The Congress has a huge gap. They've really fallen from grace. And like I said earlier, they're fighting to stay relevant, not to come to power. Two, I still, while there may merit in some of the things that Mr. Surjewala is saying about the BJP and the Aam Aadmi, but they had just 49 days and this current government has 9 months. So it will take much longer. The Congress has to, it cannot be an overnight affair. Congress comeback trail, I mean, they have a long haul. They have to exhibit the fact that they are in it for a long haul, because there are no easy answers and it's not going to happen overnight.
You know, Mr. Verghese, at this moment, increasingly in India, elections are not just fought between parties. Quite often they are fought by the face at the head of the party, i.e. the leader. Now, at this moment in time, the media and a lot of the population of Delhi are entranced by Arvind Kejriwal versus Kiran Bedi. Does Ajay Maken, the Congress face, but not chief ministerial candidate, stack up against the other two? Or is that another disadvantage Congress has to battle and contend with?
It is, because as I said in the opening remarks itself, Congress does not have a proper narrative, it does not have a proper face, and it does not have a proper communication strategy. I mean, I completely agree with what Mr. Surjewala said about the development that was brought to Delhi by 3 consecutive Congress governments. I mean, that argument would largely hold true for 2 tenures of Manmohan Singh government as well, at an all India level. But the factors that actually brought down these governments, both at the center and in Delhi, were primarily a question of perception. A perception that this party is lost the mooring, the party is being completely been taken over by corrupt elements, and the fact that the party does not have a proper leadership who is willing to fight. So you don't have a new promise to make, you don't have a new narrative to offer. As long as you don't have that, trying to live on the legacy of what you have delivered is not exactly yielding much results, as recent elections have shown.
One quick question, Mr. George. One quick question, Mr. George, before I go to Randeep Surjewala. Do you see any possibility in the remaining 10 days that that critical issue of perception can somehow be changed and changed to Congress's favor? Or do you think that's an impossible task?
I would not offer a judgment with any finality there, because things can change overnight also during a campaign. But the way the direction of this campaign has been set is increasingly going to be a Kejriwal versus Kiran Bedi fight, and I would not be surprised if Congress loses out what little it is been left with as of today.
Mr. Surjewala, I'm going to come to you on that critical issue of perception, because at the end of the day, it's the perception that you're a party that's losing, that's out of touch with the people, that's going to drown you. Now, if you were going to really swim, you'd have either got Rahul Gandhi doing what he's doing a lot earlier, or you'd have made Ajay Maken chief ministerial candidate so he can stack up against Kejriwal and Bedi. But none of that is happening. What are you doing to try and change that critical question of perception? A quick answer.
Well, Mr. Thapar, when it comes to perception, faces and agenda, both are important, face and an agenda. When we projected Mr. Maken, and when you compare him with the two, here is 35 years of experience in public life, from an NSUI worker to a union minister in Delhi. I think vis-a-vis Mr. Kejriwal and
in which case, why didn't you make him CM candidate? Why did you not make him CM candidate? If he's got all that experience, make him CM candidate.
Well, he is chairman of the party's campaign committee and he is leading the campaign from the front besides contesting himself.
But you keep saying that you haven't chosen the CM candidate.
Well-defined policy of the party.
This critical issue of perception remains unaddressed effectively. And I'm going to put it to you before we end. Do you really believe that there's any hope that Congress's perception as a party that let Delhi down eventually, even though they've done an awful lot of good work and it's there for everyone to see, but that perception hangs like a sword over them. Is there any possibility that perception can be addressed in the 10 remaining days? Or is it increasingly likely that Congress will be the third? They don't have a chance of winning.
I don't see that happening. Although in politics, you never shut the door on anything, but I'd be very, very surprised if overnight this changes. They have a huge backlog. They are way behind the others, and I don't see this changing. As far as the personality question is concerned, if you heard the three leaders who've been projected, I think Ajay Makan sounds far more chief ministerial than either Kejriwal or Ms. Kiran
But
Bedi.
he doesn't get a look in.
But he doesn't get a look in because of the perception, and because of the perception about the Congress party. It's very early days yet. The Congress needs to spend a lot more time. They need to reboot before people start thinking of them again.
Very, very quickly, Varghese, George, because we have only 20 seconds. How much of the responsibility for this lack of narrative, lack of face, lack of leader lies squarely with Rahul Gandhi? You have to literally answer in 10 seconds.
I think I would say 99.9%, because Congress is a party which is held together by the charisma of the party, or the first family, that is the Nehru Gandhis. If Rahul Gandhi abdicates, there will be no Congress left.
All right, there I'm afraid we have to leave it. Mr. Surjewala, sadly I can't give you a chance to respond to that, but let me on your behalf say, I know you would strongly disagree. My thanks to all three of my guests for joining me. There we end this particular episode. You have been. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.